They declared Earth guilty and unleashed humanity's wrath. The Galactic Council believed their judgment was final. With one vote, they thought they had condemned Earth, but they never understood humanity. That single vote didn't break us. It unleashed a fury that would change the galaxy forever. The invitation. The morning Earth changed forever started like any other. Birds sang in Tokyo parks. Vendors sold coffee in New York streets. Children played in Cairo playgrounds. Then the sky filled with ships that defied every law of physics humanity thought it understood. Admiral Chen Wei stood on the observation deck of the United Nations Space Command, watching the alien armada position itself around Earth. 300 vessels hung in perfect formation, each one larger than any structure humans had ever built. They gleamed like silver tears against the black canvas of space, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. "They're not responding to any of our communication attempts," reported Lieutenant Sarah Martinez from the communication station. Her voice remained steady, though her hands trembled slightly as she worked the controls. "Keep trying all frequencies," Chen ordered. He had trained for 30 years in the military, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. First contact, the dream and nightmare of every generation that had looked up at the stars and wondered if they were alone. The answer came not through radio waves or digital signals, but through a technology that made their most advanced systems look like stone tools. A hologram materialized in the center of the command room, so detailed and perfect that Chen almost reached out to touch it before catching himself. The being that appeared stood 9 feet tall with skin that shifted between blue and green like an oil slick. Its forearms moved independently, each one decorated with jewelry that seemed to be made of crystallized light. When it spoke, the words appeared directly in their minds, translated perfectly into every language of every person present. "Greetings, inhabitants of Earth. I am Coordinator Vexhai of the Galactic Federation. We come with an invitation that will change your species' destiny." Ambassador Maria Santos stepped forward. She'd been selected for this role 5 years ago, when the United Nations created the First Contact Protocol. Every day since, she had prepared for a moment she never truly believed would come. "We welcome you to Earth, Coordinator Vexhai. I am Ambassador Santos, representing the united peoples of our world. We are honored by your presence and eager to establish peaceful relations." The alien's expression was impossible to read. Its face had features that seemed familiar yet wrong, like looking at a reflection in disturbed water. When it spoke again, there was something in its tone that made Chen's instincts scream a warning. "Your eagerness is quaint. The Galactic Federation has observed your species for some time. Despite your primitive technology and violent history, we have decided to extend an offer of provisional membership." Dr. James Okonkwo frowned from his position at the science station. The word primitive stung, especially considering the holographic technology they were witnessing made their best efforts look like cave paintings. But it was the word provisional that concerned him more. "We are grateful for this opportunity," Ambassador Santos continued diplomatically. "Perhaps you could explain what membership in the Galactic Federation entails." Vexhai waved one of its forearms in the air filled with images, planets of impossible beauty, cities that floated in clouds, beings of every conceivable form living in apparent harmony. It was a vision of paradise, of everything humanity had dreamed the future could be. "The Federation spans 12,000 worlds across the galaxy. We have ended war, eliminated disease, conquered death itself. Your species would gain access to technology beyond your current comprehension, medical advances that would extend your lives by centuries, energy sources that would end your dependence on fossil fuels instantly, transportation that would put the stars within your reach." The command room buzzed with excitement. This was everything they had hoped for and more. But Chen noticed something in the alien's presentation. The beings in those perfect cities all wore the same expression, the same empty contentment, the same lack of something he couldn't quite define. And in exchange, Ambassador Santos asked the question everyone was thinking. "You would submit to Federation law. Your governments would be dissolved and replaced by our administrative system. Your military forces would be disbanded. Your technological development would proceed according to our guidelines. Your population would be managed to optimal levels. Your culture would be adjusted to fit galactic standards." The room fell silent. The excitement drained away like water from a broken dam. "You're asking us to give up our sovereignty," Chen said, breaking protocol. Ambassador Santos shot him a warning look, but he continued. You want us to surrender everything that makes us human? You would become something better, Vexhai replied, and for the first time, emotion crept into its mental voice. Condescension. Your species is young, violent, chaotic. You are against each other over resources that the Federation could provide infinitely. You destroy your planet with primitive industries. You cling to outdated concepts like individual nations and personal freedom that only lead to suffering. Dr. Okonkwo stood up slowly. Our chaos, as you call it, is what drives our innovation. Our conflicts, terrible as they are, push us to become better. Our freedom, messy and imperfect, is what makes us who we are. Sentiment from a species that has barely left its own planet, Vexhai dismissed. You have 3 of your rotations to decide.
Accept our offer and your species will survive and thrive under our guidance.
Rejected and you will remain isolated, primitive, and eventually extinct. No other species will be permitted to contact you. No trade, no exchange of knowledge, nothing. You will be alone in the universe forever. The hologram flickered and vanished. Through the observation windows, the alien fleet remained, a silent reminder of the power behind the ultimatum. Ambassador Santos called an emergency session of the United Nations. Representatives from every nation on Earth gathered, some in person, others through secure video links. The debate raged for 2 full days. Presidents and prime ministers, scientists and philosophers, religious leaders and ordinary citizens all weighed in on the decision that would determine humanity's future. Some argued for acceptance. The technology alone could solve every problem facing humanity. Climate change, disease, poverty, all could be eliminated instantly. The price of freedom seemed small compared to the paradise being offered. Others argued against it. They pointed to human history, to every time one group had promised paradise in exchange for submission. They spoke of creativity born from struggle, of strength found in diversity, of the human spirit that refused to be caged even by benevolent masters. Chen found himself thinking of his daughter, studying art in Beijing. Under Federation rule, would her paintings still carry the wild passion that made them beautiful? Would her eyes still light up when she created something new and unexpected? Dr. Okonkwo ran simulations on his computers, trying to model what human society would look like under Federation control. Every projection showed the same result: peace, prosperity, and stagnation. Humanity would survive but stop growing, stop reaching, stop dreaming of impossible things. On the 3rd day, Ambassador Santos stood before the assembled representatives of Earth. The vote had been taken. The decision had been made. She looked tired but resolute as she prepared to deliver humanity's answer to the stars. The alien fleet responded to their signal immediately. Vexhai's hologram appeared, not just in the UN chamber but in every major city on Earth. Billions of humans watched as their representative faced the being that held their future in its 4 hands. Coordinator. Vexhai, Santos began, her voice carrying the weight of all human history behind it. We have considered your offer carefully. We are grateful for the opportunity you have extended to our species. You have chosen wisely, Vexhai interrupted, already assuming their answer. We respectfully decline. The silence that followed could have swallowed stars. Vexhai's form flickered as if the technology itself was shocked by the response. You decline. You choose isolation over advancement, primitive struggle over enlightenment, death over immortality? We choose freedom over comfort, Santos replied firmly. Growth over stagnation. The right to make our own mistakes over the safety of your protection. We choose to remain human, with all our flaws and chaos and beautiful imperfection. You doom your species to extinction. Vexhai's mental voice carried genuine bewilderment now. No species has ever rejected membership in the Federation. You will be alone, forever alone, in an empty corner of the galaxy. Then we'll make our corner less empty, Chen called out, standing beside Santos. We'll reach the stars on our own terms, in our own way, in our own time. And when we do, Dr. Okonkwo added, joining them, we'll come as equals, not as subjects. The hologram stared at them for a long moment. Around Earth, the perfect formation of the alien fleet began to shift, preparing to leave. You will regret this decision, Vexhai said finally. When your planet burns from your own foolishness, when your people cry out for salvation, remember that you chose this path. We'll remember, Santos said softly. We'll remember that we chose to write our own story, even if it ends in tragedy, rather than live forever in someone else's paradise. The alien fleet departed as suddenly as it had arrived, leaving Earth, alone under familiar stars that suddenly seemed much farther away. The consequences. 6 months after the Federation departed, the full weight of humanity's decision began to manifest. The economic blockade was total and devastating in its thoroughness. Every trade route that led to Earth was closed. Every communication channel went silent. Space itself seemed to conspire against human vessels that ventured too far from home. Director Lisa Thompson stood in the newly constructed Emergency Innovation Center beneath Geneva, surrounded by the brightest minds humanity had to offer. The facility had been built in record time, carved from solid rock 2 kilometers underground. It represented Earth's new reality. If they were going to survive alone, they would need to revolutionize everything. "Report," she called out to the assembled team leaders. Dr. Rashid Hassan from the Energy Division spoke first. "The Federation's departure somehow disrupted our fusion reactors. We're operating at 30% efficiency. It's like the laws of physics themselves have been altered in local space. Same with our quantum computers," added Dr. Kim Soo-jin from Information Systems. "Processing speeds have dropped by half. Programs that worked perfectly now throw errors we can't explain." Thompson nodded grimly. She had expected this. The Federation hadn't just left Earth isolated. They had somehow handicapped human technology, ensuring the planet would struggle to advance. "Then we adapt," she said firmly. "If the old physics don't work, we discover new ones. If traditional approaches fail, we invent unconventional ones." Humanity has always been at its best when challenged. In a different part of the facility, engineer Marcus Johnson worked alongside his team on something that shouldn't exist. They called it the Void Engine, a propulsion system based on principles that Federation science said were impossible. Marcus had discovered the concept by accident while trying to repair a damaged fusion core. Instead of generating thrust through reaction mass, it created bubbles of altered space-time. "It's ugly, inefficient, and breaks half the laws of thermodynamics," Marcus explained to Thompson during her inspection tour. "But it works. We can reach Mars in 3 days instead of 9 months. "How long before we can scale it up?" Thompson asked. "Give me 6 months and a bigger team. I'll give you ships that can reach the outer planets in weeks." The transformation of human society accelerated beyond anything history had recorded. With survival on the line, old divisions crumbled. Nations that had been enemies for generations shared resources and knowledge freely. Scientists who had competed for prizes now collaborated without ego. The entire species unified around a single goal: proving the Federation wrong. In Mumbai, Dr. Priya Sharma made a breakthrough in biological engineering that should have taken decades to achieve. By combining human intuition with adaptive algorithms, she created crops that could grow in any environment, including the vacuum of space itself. In São Paulo, a team of teenagers working in their school's makerspace accidentally discovered a new form of communication that didn't rely on electromagnetic radiation. They called it quantum threading, and it allowed instant communication regardless of distance or interference. But the most significant discovery came from an unexpected source. Thomas Mitchell, a musician from London, was experimenting with sound waves when he noticed something odd. Certain frequencies seemed to resonate with the fabric of space itself, creating tiny rifts that existed for nanoseconds before closing. When physicists examined his discovery, they found something remarkable. The Federation's technology worked by imposing their understanding of physics on local space. But music, particularly human music with its emotional resonance and mathematical imperfection, disrupted their impositions. "It's like reality itself responds to human creativity," Dr. Okonkwo explained to the Emergency Council. "The more unique and emotionally charged the expression, the stronger the effect." This discovery led to the development of resonance technology. By combining human artistic expression with scientific principles, Earth's engineers created devices that operated outside Federation-defined physics: ships powered by symphonies, computers that processed information through poetry, weapons that channeled the raw emotion of their operators. It was chaotic, unpredictable, and utterly human. 8 months after isolation, Earth received unexpected visitors. Not the Federation, but 3 small ships bearing species the humans had never seen before. They approached cautiously, broadcasting signals of peace in broken Earth languages they had somehow acquired. The beings that emerged were unlike anything in Federation propaganda. The Wanderers, as they called themselves, were refugees from Federation space, species that had rejected the rigid order, choosing exile over submission. "We monitored your rejection of membership," their representative explained through a translation device cobbled together from a dozen different technologies. "No species has ever said no before. We came to see if the stories were true." "What stories?" Ambassador Santos asked. "That humans are insane enough to choose freedom over paradise. That you're developing technology that shouldn't exist. That you're doing the impossible." The Wanderers brought with them fragments of knowledge, pieces of technology, and most importantly, proof that Earth wasn't truly alone. There were others out there, species that valued independence over security, creativity over perfection. A secret alliance began to form. Not an organization like the Federation, but a loose network of independent worlds sharing knowledge and resources while maintaining their autonomy. They called it the Free Systems Collective, and its only rule was that there were no rules, only voluntary cooperation. Meanwhile, the Federation watched Earth's progress with growing concern. Coordinator Vexhai stood before the Grand Council on the capital world of Zentari Prime, presenting reports that defied explanation. "The humans are advancing faster in isolation than they did with access to galactic knowledge," Vexhai reported. "Their technology is crude but effective. Their methods are chaotic but produce results. They're not following the prescribed path of development." "Impossible," declared High Counselor Threndal. "No species can advance without proper guidance. They must be receiving help from somewhere. We've monitored all approaches to their system. Nothing gets through the blockade." "Then how do you explain this?" Threndal gestured to images of human ships moving through space in ways that violated Federation understanding of physics. "I cannot explain it," Vexhai admitted. "But I believe we may have made an error in our assessment of humanity." The council erupted in debate. Some called for military intervention before humans became a threat. Others argued for maintaining the blockade and letting humanity destroy itself. A few suggested reopening negotiations. But while they debated, humanity continued to evolve. The pressure of isolation had triggered something in the species, a rapid adaptation that compressed centuries of development into months. Every challenge. The Federation's blockade created only sparked new innovations. Dr. Lisa Chen, working in a converted subway tunnel in Shanghai, developed a method of folding space that required no exotic matter or massive energy inputs. It relied instead on what she called cognitive resonance, using the human brain's unique ability to hold contradictory concepts simultaneously. In Lagos, a collective of artists and engineers created the first emotion engine, a power source that converted human feelings directly into usable energy. The stronger and more genuine the emotion, the more power it generated. Love, anger, joy, grief, all became fuel for humanity's expansion. Children born after the isolation began showing subtle changes. They solved problems in ways that made no logical sense but worked anyway. They saw patterns in chaos that older generations couldn't perceive. Some scientists theorized that humanity was undergoing a controlled evolution, adapting to survive in a universe that had rejected them. 1 year after the Federation's departure, Earth launched its first interstellar probe. It wasn't sleek or elegant like Federation technology. It was a patchwork of human ingenuity, held together by determination and powered by a recording of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony playing on infinite loop. The probe carried a message to the universe broadcast on every frequency humanity could generate. We are the humans of Earth. We chose freedom over paradise. We chose growth over safety. We chose to remain ourselves rather than become perfect. We build our technology with creativity and chaos. We power our dreams with emotion and will. We are alone but not lonely. We are isolated but not defeated. And we are coming, not to conquer or submit, but to add our voice to the symphony of the cosmos. This is our Declaration of Independence. This is our promise to the stars. The message reached the edges of Federation space and kept going, carrying with it something the Federation had never encountered before. Hope, born from defiance, strength, drawn from rejection, and the unstoppable force of a species that refused to accept limits. The ultimatum 2 years had passed since Earth's rejection of Federation membership, and the impossible had become commonplace. New Geneva, humanity's first city on Mars, sprawled across Valles Marineris like a declaration of defiance. Its buildings grew from Martian soil using biotechnology that shouldn't exist, while children played in parks where Earth plants thrived under alien stars. Admiral Chen Wei, now director of Earth's deep space operations, stood on the observation deck of the Resilience, humanity's first true warship. It was an ugly thing by Federation standards, all sharp angles and exposed systems, but it could dance through space in ways that made physics textbooks weep. "Sir, we're detecting a massive subspace disruption," Lieutenant Martinez reported, her voice tense. "Something big is coming." Chen had been expecting this. Intelligence from the Wanderer network suggested the Federation had been debating Earth's situation for months. The debate had finally ended. The disruption resolved into the largest fleet humanity had ever seen. 1,000 Federation vessels arranged in perfect formation, each one a masterpiece of technology and design. At their center, a ship so massive it had its own gravitational field, bending light around it like a liquid mirror. "All Earth forces, this is Admiral Chen. Execute Protocol 7. Do not engage unless fired upon. Repeat, do not engage." Across the solar system, humanity's ramshackle fleet powered down weapons and waited. 43 ships against 1,000. It would be a massacre if it came to violence, and everyone knew it. The Federation flagship transmitted directly to every communication device on Earth and its colonies. High Counselor Threndal appeared, its crystalline form radiating authority and barely contained frustration. "Humans of Earth," it began, its voice carrying the weight of galactic law. "Your isolation was meant to teach you humility. Instead, you have become a contagion. Your chaotic technology spreads to other systems. Your message of defiance corrupts species that had accepted order. This cannot continue." In the Earth Council chambers, President Sarah O'Brien gathered with humanity's leaders. They had prepared for this moment, run countless simulations, but reality carried a weight that preparation couldn't match. "We offer you one final opportunity," Threndal continued. "Submit to Federation authority now, and your species will be granted probationary membership. Your unlawful technology will be destroyed, your expansion will be controlled, but you will survive. Refuse, and we will have no choice but to quarantine your entire system permanently. No ship will ever leave. No signal will ever escape. You will live and die on your single world, forever." The ultimatum hung in the air like a blade. President O'Brien activated the quantum thread communicator, connecting instantly with every human settlement across the solar system. "This is President O'Brien. All citizens, prepare for Revelation Protocol. It's time to show them what we've learned." Dr. James Okonkwo, now head of Earth's Reality Engineering Division, initiated a program 2 years in the making. Across the solar system, hidden installations came online, each one broadcasting a different frequency of what humanity had learned to call cognitive resonance. The effect was immediate and impossible. Space itself around Earth began to shimmer, reality bending in ways that made Federation sensors scream warnings. The perfect formation of the Federation fleet wavered as their navigation system struggled to understand what they were seeing. "What are you doing?" Threndal demanded. "Showing you the truth," O'Brien replied calmly. "You think reality operates according to fixed laws. We've learned that consciousness itself shapes the universe. Human consciousness, with all its chaos and contradiction, has a peculiar relationship with reality. We don't follow the rules because we can rewrite them. To demonstrate, every human ship in the system vanished, not through cloaking technology but by convincing space itself they existed somewhere else. They reappeared moments later in different positions, having traveled without moving. Impossible, Threndal declared, but uncertainty had crept into its voice. That word has lost meaning for us, Chen responded from the Resilience. Would you like to see more? Without waiting for an answer, Earth's artists and scientists unveiled 2 years of secret development. Musicians in concert halls around the world began playing compositions that resonated with quantum fields. The music traveled faster than light, carrying with it information and energy that violated every law the Federation held sacred. Children in classrooms solved mathematical equations by feeling their way to answers, their solutions appearing on Federation computers before they were written down. Engineers built machines while dreaming, their unconscious minds assembling matter through will alone. "This is chaos," Threndal protested. "This is madness. This is humanity," Ambassador Santos said, her image appearing alongside O'Brien's. "We tried to tell you, we're not like other species. We don't develop linearly. We don't think logically. We exist in the space between order and chaos, and that space is where miracles happen." The demonstration continued. A poet in Mumbai recited verses that opened microscopic wormholes. A sculptor in Rome carved statues that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. A child in Tokyo drew pictures that became real for the moments observers believed in them. But the most powerful demonstration came from Dr. Priya Sharma, who had spent 2 years developing what she called empathic technology. She activated a device that broadcast human emotion directly into space, not as signals but as a fundamental force. Every being in the Federation fleet suddenly felt what humanity felt. The joy of discovery, the pain of rejection, the fierce love of freedom, the terrible beauty of chaos, the hope that burned so bright it could ignite stars. Many of the Federation species had suppressed such feelings for millennia, trading them for stability and order. Experiencing them again raw and unfiltered was overwhelming. Some ships broke formation. Others sent unauthorized communications to Earth, expressing emotions they had forgotten they could feel. "Stop this," Threndal commanded, but its voice lacked conviction. It too was feeling something it had thought lost forever: doubt. "We're not attacking you," O'Brien explained gently. "We're showing you what you're missing. The Federation offers survival, but at what cost? You've created a galaxy of the living dead, species that exist but don't truly live. From the Wanderer ships hidden at the edge of the system, more voices joined Earth's. Species that had chosen exile over submission began broadcasting their own stories. The Songweavers, whose music had been deemed too chaotic for Federation space. The Dreamers, whose non-linear thinking violated standard cognitive patterns. The Shapers, whose ability to alter reality through will had been suppressed as dangerous. "You're not protecting the galaxy," one Wanderer transmitted. "You're imprisoning it. Humans have shown us what we all forgot: that growth comes from chaos, strength from struggle, and beauty from imperfection." The Federation fleet held position, but cracks were showing. Individual ships began questioning orders. Entire species started reconsidering their membership. The perfect unity that had defined the Federation for millennia was fracturing. High Counselor Threndal made one last attempt to restore order. "You spread anarchy. You promote chaos. You endanger everything we've built." "We promote choice," President O'Brien countered. "We offer freedom. We endanger only your control." Dr. Okonkwo activated the final phase of the demonstration. Using technology that merged human consciousness with quantum mechanics, Earth projected a vision across the galaxy. Not through screens or holograms, but directly into the minds of every sentient being within range. They saw a future where species developed according to their nature, not Federation templates. Where technology grew from creativity rather than conformity. Where peace came from understanding rather than control. Where the galaxy was a symphony of different voices rather than a single, monotonous note. It was beautiful, chaotic, and absolutely terrifying to those who valued order above all. "This is what we offer," humanity declared with one voice. "Not membership in another empire, but partnership in infinite possibility. Not safety, but growth. Not perfection, but life in all its messy glory." The Federation fleet remained silent for long minutes. When Threndal finally spoke, its voice carried resignation mixed with something that might have been admiration. "You have made your choice clear. We will withdraw the quarantine order, but know this: the Federation will not protect you. When your chaos leads to disaster, when your freedom becomes destructive, we will not intervene." "We never asked for your protection," Chen replied, "only for the right to fail or succeed on our own terms." One by one, the Federation ships began to withdraw, but not all of them. 17 vessels from different species broke formation and approached Earth instead. "We request asylum," their commander transmitted. "We want to learn your chaos. We want to remember how to truly live. As the Federation fleet disappeared into subspace, leaving behind defectors who chose freedom over safety, Earth's ragged fleet reformed around their new allies. The blockade was broken. The ultimatum had failed, and across the galaxy, species that had accepted Federation rule for millennia began to question whether order was worth the price they had paid. The turning point. The defection of 17 Federation vessels marked the beginning of what historians would later call the Great Awakening. Across the galaxy, species that had lived under Federation control for millennia began to stir. The spark of human defiance had lit fires in places the Federation never expected. Captain Marcus Johnson, now commanding Earth's first hybrid vessel incorporating defector technology, received the encrypted message while patrolling the outer system. The transmission came from deep within Federation space, from a world that shouldn't have been able to communicate with Earth at all. This is the crystalline collective of Nexus 7. We have heard Earth's message. We have felt your emotion touch. We remember what we were before the Federation made us forget. We are waking up. Similar messages arrive daily. The hive minds of Sigma Draconis reported spontaneous individual thoughts for the first time in centuries. The machine intelligence of the binary worlds began composing music, something their Federation-approved programming should have made impossible. The ancient trees of Forest Home started growing in chaotic patterns, breaking free from the geometric perfection imposed upon them. In the Federation capital, High Counselor Threndell convened an emergency session. The great chamber that had once radiated serene order now hummed with barely controlled panic. The contagion spreads faster than we calculated, reported the Strategic Analysis Collective. 17% of member species now show signs of cognitive deviation from approved patterns. Then we must act decisively, Threndall declared. Mobilize the enforcement fleet. Any system showing signs of chaos corruption must be quarantined immediately. But the order to mobilize revealed a critical weakness in the Federation's structure. Their military, like everything else, operated on absolute order and predictability. When individual captains began questioning commands, when crews started thinking for themselves, the perfect machine began to break down. Admiral Vextor, commanding the enforcement fleet, arrived at the Kelhari system to impose quarantine. But instead of compliance, he found revolution. The Kelhari, one of the first species to support Earth, had embraced chaos fully. Their cities now grew like living organisms. Their technology evolved and adapted in real time. Their people laughed, cried, and dreamed in ways they hadn't for generations. "Stand down, Admiral," the Kelhari Prime Minister transmitted. "We will not return to the living death of perfect order." "You leave me no choice," Vextor replied, charging weapons. But when he gave the order to fire, something unprecedented happened. His crew hesitated. For just a moment, they questioned whether destroying a world full of living beings was worth preserving order. That moment of doubt was enough. The Kelhari didn't fight back with traditional weapons. Instead, they broadcast pure, unfiltered joy directly at the enforcement fleet. The emotional wave was overwhelming. Crew members who hadn't felt genuine happiness in decades suddenly remembered what it was like to smile without purpose, to laugh without logic. 3 ships of the enforcement fleet defected on the spot. The rest withdrew in confusion, their crews struggling with emotions they didn't understand. On Earth, the transformation accelerated. The 17 defector ships had brought with them not just technology but perspective. Each species saw reality differently, and humans had the unique ability to hold all these perspectives simultaneously. Dr. Lisa Chen worked with a defector scientist from the Quantum Collective, beings who existed in multiple dimensions at once. Together, they developed technology that operated in parallel realities, allowing humanity to be in multiple places simultaneously without actually moving. "It's not about breaking the laws of physics," she explained to the Earth Council. "It's about realizing that different physics exist simultaneously, and we can choose which ones to follow moment by moment." The breakthrough came when young Aisha Patel, a 15-year-old student from New Delhi, solved an equation that had stumped both human and alien scientists. She didn't calculate the answer. She painted it, creating an artwork that somehow contained the mathematical solution in its color patterns. "I don't know how I knew," she said when asked. "I just felt the answer wanted to exist, so I gave it a shape." This fusion of art, emotion, science, and alien perspective created something entirely new. Humanity wasn't just advancing, it was transcending, becoming something that neither pure order nor pure chaos could have achieved alone. The tipping point came when the Federation made its fatal mistake. Desperate to contain the spreading chaos, they activated the Harmony Protocol, an ancient system designed to forcibly synchronize the consciousness of all member species. It would eliminate free will entirely, creating perfect order at the cost of everything that made life worth living. But they hadn't counted on what 2 years of isolation had taught humanity about consciousness and reality. The moment the Harmony Protocol activated, every human-trained consciousness in the galaxy felt it. And they responded not with resistance, but with acceptance. They let the protocol in, and then they changed it. Musicians on Earth played compositions that traveled along the protocol's pathways. Artists painted images that appeared in the minds of beings across the galaxy. Writers told stories that became temporarily real in the consciousness of anyone connected to the network. The protocol, designed to create uniformity, became a conduit for infinite diversity. Every connected being suddenly experienced not one perspective but millions. They saw through human eyes, felt with wanderer hearts, thought with machine logic and organic intuition simultaneously. The overload was spectacular. The protocol's control systems, unable to process infinite diversity, shut down entirely. But the connections remained, transformed from chains of control into bridges of understanding. For the first time in galactic history, every sentient being could truly understand every other. They felt each other's pain, joy, fear, and hope. They saw that order and chaos were not enemies but dance partners in the cosmic ballet of existence. The Federation's power structure collapsed in minutes, not through violence or revolution but through understanding. When you truly feel another being's need for freedom, you cannot cage them. When you experience their joy in chaos, you cannot force them into order. High Counselor Threndal, experiencing individual consciousness for the first time in millennia, sent a final transmission to Earth. "We were wrong," it said, and there was wonder in its voice. "We thought we were protecting the galaxy from chaos. We were protecting ourselves from life. You have not destroyed us. You have freed us." Across the galaxy, the transformation accelerated. The rigid structures of the Federation dissolved, replaced by voluntary associations based on mutual benefit rather than enforced order. Species that had been enemies learned to appreciate their differences. Technologies that had been suppressed for being too unpredictable were embraced for their creative potential. But humanity's greatest contribution wasn't technology or philosophy. It was the simple, powerful idea that imperfection was not a flaw to be corrected, but a feature to be celebrated. That growth came from struggle, strength from diversity, and beauty from the endless dance between order and chaos. The war that everyone expected never came. Instead, there was a revolution of consciousness, an awakening of possibility, a remembering of what it meant to truly live rather than merely exist. The new beginning continued. 5 years after Earth's rejection of Federation membership, the galaxy bore no resemblance to the ordered perfection that had existed for millennia. Ambassador Maria Santos stood in the Grand Assembly Hall on what was once the Federation capital world of Zentari Prime. The hall itself had been transformed. Where once stood rigid rows of identical seats, now grew a living amphitheater where each species had shaped their space according to their nature. The crystalline collective had grown singing formations that resonated with every word spoken. The wanderers had built nests of woven light that shifted with their emotions. Humans had simply placed comfortable chairs in a circle with coffee machines nearby. Everyone laughed about that. Coffee had become humanity's first major cultural export, spreading across the galaxy faster than any technology. "The old order is dead," Santos addressed the assembled representatives. "Now we must decide what grows in its place." But this wasn't a moment for one species to impose its will on others. Humanity had learned that lesson from Earth's own history. Instead, Santos stepped back, inviting others to speak. The first to rise was Krental, formerly a high-ranking Federation enforcer, now something entirely different. Its crystalline form had lost the rigid perfection of before, showing cracks filled with light that pulsed with each thought. "For 10,000 years we believed order was safety," Krental said. "We sacrificed growth for stability, creativity for predictability. Humans showed us we were not living but slowly dying. The question now is not what system replaces the Federation, but whether we need a system at all. Young Kenji Nakamura, one of Earth's new generation who had grown up during the isolation, stood next. At 19, he possessed the unique perspective of someone who had never known a galaxy with a functioning Federation. "We propose networks, not hierarchies," he said, his words carrying the confidence of youth. "Voluntary associations based on mutual benefit, trade agreements that respect sovereignty, defense pacts that protect without controlling. Let each species develop according to its nature, coming together when it serves all, standing apart when it serves none." The debate continued for days, but it was unlike any political discussion the galaxy had seen before. There were no power plays, no hidden agendas. The shared consciousness experience from the failed Harmony Protocol had left permanent marks. While beings could no longer read each other's minds, they retained an empathic understanding that made deception pointless and cooperation natural. Dr. James Okonkwo, now Earth's senior scientific advisor, presented humanity's gift to the galaxy, the diversity engine. It was a technological framework that allowed different species innovations to work together, without forcing standardization. A device built with crystalline singing technology could interface with human chaos tech and machine pure logic, each maintaining its unique properties while contributing to a greater whole. "The Federation failed because it tried to make us all the same," Okonkwo explained. "We succeed by celebrating our differences. Your order, our chaos, their logic, everyone's emotion, all have value. The trick is not choosing one over the others, but finding harmony in discord." The first test of this new approach came sooner than expected. A previously unknown species, the Void Dancers, emerged from dark space where they had hidden for millennia, fleeing Federation expansion. They were beings of pure energy who existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions humans couldn't perceive. Under the old system, they would have been forced to conform or flee again. Under the new approach, their unique nature was seen as an opportunity. The Void Dancers could travel instantly across any distance but couldn't interact with physical matter. Humans could manipulate reality but needed time to travel. Together, they created transportation networks that defied both limitations. Admiral Chen Wei, now serving as Earth's military liaison to the galactic community, established the first mutual defense network. Unlike Federation forces that imposed order, this was a voluntary association where each species contributed according to their abilities and received protection according to their needs. "We don't need a galactic police force," Chen explained to skeptics. "We need neighbors who look out for each other. Human chaos tech provides unpredictability in battle. Crystalline harmonics offer perfect coordination. Machine logic ensures tactical efficiency. Wanderer intuition predicts enemy movements. Together, we're stronger than any uniform force could be." The economic transformation was equally remarkable. Without Federation controls, trade exploded in directions no one had anticipated. Human artists collaborated with alien musicians to create experiences that transcended species boundaries. Earth's chaotic farming techniques, which grew food that adapted to any environment, ended hunger on worlds that had struggled for millennia. In return, humanity received technologies and perspectives that accelerated their development beyond imagination. Children who learned mathematics from the logic spheres while studying art with the color weavers developed minds that could process information in ways that seemed magical to previous generations, but perhaps the most significant change was in how the galaxy viewed progress itself. The Federation had defined advancement as movement toward a singular perfect state. Now progress meant expanding the possible, not narrowing it. Each species developed along its own path, occasionally crossing with others to create something neither could achieve alone. 5 years became 10. 10 became 20. The galaxy grew wild and wonderful, dangerous and beautiful. Wars still happened, but they were small. Local affairs resolved quickly by neighbor species who had no patience for conflicts that disrupted trade and cultural exchange. Disasters struck, but response came from 100 worlds instead of waiting for bureaucratic approval. President Sarah O'Brien, now in her second term leading Earth's contribution to galactic affairs, stood before the United Nations on the 20th anniversary of first contact. Her hair had grayed, but her eyes held the same fierce determination that had carried humanity through its darkest hour. They asked us to choose between chaos and order. She reminded the assembly. We chose both. They demanded we pick isolation or submission. We created a third option. They said we were too primitive, too violent, too unpredictable to join their perfect galaxy. They were right. We were all those things, and those were exactly the qualities the galaxy needed. The transformation was complete, but it was not an ending. It was, as humans like to say, just the beginning. Species that had stagnated for millennia were innovating again. Worlds that had been silent were singing. The galaxy itself seemed more alive, pulsing with the chaotic harmony of infinite diversity. Former High Counselor Threndal, now simply Thren to friends, operated a small research station at the edge of known space. It had given up power for curiosity, control for wonder. Working alongside a human partner, Dr. Lisa Chen, they studied the strange space where order and chaos met, finding new laws of physics that emerged from their intersection. Your species saved us, Thren said one day, watching a sunset painted in colors its eyes had never noticed before the awakening. We didn't save you, Chen replied, mixing coffee for them both, a ritual Thren had come to cherish. We just reminded you that being saved and being safe aren't the same thing. Life is risk. Growth is dangerous. Beauty comes from the broken places where light gets in. As the years passed, humanity's children spread across the stars, not as conquerors, but as catalysts. Wherever they went, they brought questions instead of answers, possibilities instead of certainties. They taught other species that the most beautiful word in any language wasn't perfect, but maybe. The galaxy had learned the most important lesson humanity had to offer, that the choice between order and chaos was false. Life existed in the tension between them, in the dance of structure and freedom, in the marriage of discipline and creativity, and in the depths of space. On countless worlds, beings who had once moved in perfect synchronization now stumbled, laughed, failed, succeeded, and lived their own perfectly imperfect lives. The galaxy was messier than it had ever been. It was also more alive than it had been in 10,000 years. Earth had been offered paradise and chosen struggle. In doing so, they had given the galaxy something far more precious, the chance to truly live. The vote had been 847-3 against humanity. History would record it as the 847's greatest mistake and humanity's greatest gift, for in rejecting Earth, the Federation had freed not just one species but thousands, and in accepting that rejection, humanity had shown the galaxy that sometimes the best answer to an ultimatum is neither yes nor no, but let us show you another way. The stars still shone in the night sky above Earth, but now they seemed different. They were no longer distant, cold points of light. They were neighbors, friends, possibilities, each one a different song in the grand symphony of chaos and order that the galaxy had become. And somewhere in the vast darkness between the stars, new species were taking their first steps into space, broadcasting their first messages into the void. They would find not a monolithic federation demanding conformity, but a galaxy of infinite diversity, ready to welcome them not in spite of their strangeness but because of it. The story of humanity's rejection by the galaxy had become the galaxy's greatest legend. Not because humans had won a war, but because they had refused to fight one. Not because they had imposed their will, but because they had insisted on the right of every species to impose their own will on themselves. In the end, the Federation's greatest fear had come true. Chaos had spread across the galaxy, and with it came life, growth, joy, pain, failure, success, and all the beautiful messiness that made existence worth experiencing. The galaxy had voted against Earth. Earth had voted for life. And in the end, life always wins.